Hey everybody. So it just looks like a bunch of people are just joining. So welcome. We're in week 4 of this. Just while we're waiting for people to join, I'll just get through a little bit of a recap of what we've done for the first 3 weeks. So we started by introducing what we call the joint by joint model, which is the body's meant to be functioning as a linkage system that alternates between areas that are supposed to be stable and areas that are supposed to be mobile. And so if I build you from the ground up, the feet are stable, your ankles are mobile, your knees are stable, your hips are mobile, and your low back is stable. And the challenge with that, if you mess with that formula, you start to run into some trouble. So we've been focusing on primarily your hips to this so far, because what we usually see in clinic is that you take an area that's supposed to be mobile and we stiffen it up, you make it too stable. And we started in week 1 learning what we call hip dissociation exercises, because if the hips are too stiff, your body compensates by gaining mobility in the back. And that repetitive strain builds over time to create an injury and pain. So it starts with trying to get your hips doing their job. And so in week 1, we started with what's called hip dissociation exercises, which is just learning how to be stable in the core and moving at the hip. Week 2, we introduced a stretching routine. And again, I put a different spin on it because there's a difference between flexibility and mobility. Flexibility means the tissues can actually stretch out enough to give you the range of motion, but mobility means there has to be an element of movement control, meaning your nervous system has to be able to control that new range of motion. Otherwise, if you put a joint into a range of motion that doesn't have the control, it's a bit dangerous. The nervous system will sense that that joint position is now vulnerable to injury, and it will send the signals back down to tighten things back up again. So we introduced a little bit different type of stretching we call Pails and Rails, which is a way to contract and relax muscles in the new ranges of motion to kind of reset the switch so your nervous system can control that new range of motion a little bit better. So maybe give me some feedback either in the chat here, or you can send me an email on how that went. I had some pretty good feedback that people were telling me they really noticed an improvement pretty rapidly in how their hips started moving. The last week was then, once we got the hips kind of moving, it was time to start building some strength. So I gave you 3 new exercises to try and get the glutes online. And then I also talked a little bit about 2 different nervous system reflexes that might get in the way or fight your ability to do that. And that was called reciprocal inhibition and synergistic dominance, which means if you're tight on one side of the joint, whatever muscles move the joint in the opposite direction will be inhibited or will come off weak. So if you've ever been told that your glutes aren't firing, you may be caught in that nervous system loop where you're perhaps too tight on one side of the joint, in this case, probably either your adductors or hip flexors. And then when you go to use the prime movers that do the opposite direction movements, the nervous system just won't let you. So the secret sauce in that is to stretch and release the tight spots first before you try and get the strengthening going. So that kind of caught us up to this week, and so that's a really good program. Some of the exercises that we went over last week were meant to start to replace the hip dissociation exercises that you learned in week 1. You don't have to keep doing both, and you can mix and match them a little bit. I did have some questions. One was, well, now that the world is starting to get back to normal and scheduling's becoming a bit more of an issue as we all have to get back to work, what should you be doing? And I think a good recipe would be if you can do your hip routine maybe 3 days a week. That's a good routine. And then on the opposite days of the week, you can do the core routine, which we're going to cover today. So that would get you doing something every day with 1 day of rest. So 6 days a week, you'd be doing something, but you could really get the routine done in probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. And I don't know if that's too big an ask or not, but that's a really good routine. So that kind of covers up to hips. So now you've mobilized or you've got your hips moving, and now it's time to start learning how to stabilize your core. And again, stabilizing core isn't just about learning how to plank and get the muscle stronger. It's about controlling the movement in the core. One thing we see mistakenly done all the time is people think your core needs to be rigid, solid, and not moving. Our backs are meant to move. The big challenge is if you let them move to their end range, that's when they're vulnerable to injury. So we want to try and control movement into what we call a neutral spine position. So neutral spine is sort of a comfortable range of motion of your low back that doesn't let your back get into too far flexed or too far extended. So we're going to cover that a little bit again. We touched on it at the beginning when we started talking about learning hip dissociation. So I'm just going to rerun through that. And then it's about turning on your core muscles to try and keep your spine a minimal amount of movement as you start to do these new exercises. And I'm going to start to introduce what we call the big four. So this is popularized by a famous back rehab specialist, Dr. Stuart McGill. He kind of pioneered a lot of these exercises, and they're set as in what we call tracks, meaning they're meant to be progressed. So I'm going to cover the first, say, entry level one up to maybe the second or third progression. Most people start to struggle after about the third progression of most of these exercises. You can take some of them all the way up to seventh and eighth progression, but obviously we're not going to get there today. I'll introduce the first couple, and I'll tell you how to judge whether you're ready to move to the next level or not. So why don't we get started? All right, so everybody, I guess we're going to get down on a mat. The first one is called the dead bug exercise. It's kind of a weird name, but it's meant to, I think, mimic what a bug looks like if it's laying on its back dying. So basically, if everybody wants to get down on their back on a mat into what we call hook lying position. So hook lying means you're laying on your back. Your neutral spine, you're almost automatically in neutral spine when you're like this and nice and relaxed. You should maybe be able to get a hand under your back. So like I was saying, I don't want you in extreme ranges of motion, so I don't want you super arched, and I don't want you flattening your back into the mat. I want you just to be nice and neutral, and then you want to engage your core muscles, so you just turn them on, okay? So the dead bug exercise, the full dead bug would be this one where your hands are up in the air and you're kind of moving like this. I don't want you doing it like this, but that's what's called the dead bug exercise. So we're going to start level one of this exercise is you want to learn how to, again, the principle is controlling the movement here and moving in the extremities. So level one is just learning how to move one arm at a time without letting your core move. Most people find this level pretty easy. Now, the rule of thumb on how to progress yourself is if you can perform 3 sets of 10 of this exercise without losing your ability to control your core, then it's too easy for you and you can stop that level and move to the next level. Okay, so level one would be moving one arm at a time without allowing any movement in the core. Okay, level two would be moving both arms at the same time. Okay, now some of you might be kind of tight in the shoulders, so what you might find is as you start to get to about here, in order to get your arms all the way to the floor, you might start arching your back, and I don't want that. So you have to make sure you stay neutral. So as you lift your arms up, you should be able to touch them all the way to the floor and come back to the other side or onto the ground without allowing any movement. So that's level two of the dead bug exercise. Again, the same principle. If you can do 3 sets of 10 with both arms without losing your core, then it's too easy for you and you're ready to move to level 3. So level 3 is usually where we start to see people struggle a little bit, and that's because we're going to leave the arms down on the floor and we're going to start to move the legs. So again, what you do is you turn on the muscles and then you're just going to lift one leg into the air and put it back down again, and then the other leg. This is usually where we start to see people struggle to maintain their core because the legs are quite a bit heavier than the arms. As you start to lift the leg, you might find that your core wiggles a little bit too much, or you might even find that you get a little bit of discomfort across your belt line there or in your low back. So that's usually the one where we start to see people not or struggling to get 3 sets of 10 done without losing their core. So if you have any discomfort when you're doing level 3, that probably means you're not engaging your core well enough and you're allowing some movement to happen in your low back. It's not happening in your hips. Now, because we've already been doing hip dissociation exercises, and last week we started doing strengthening, you guys might be pretty good at this one. So we can progress. I can show you the next level where it is where we start to get both legs up in the air like this, both arms, and then you start to do a heel tap. Okay, so that's the next level to that one. So again, you're engaged here and you're not allowing movement. I don't want to show you much bigger progression because if you have some back pain, you're probably going to start reaching a limit about maybe level 3 or certainly level 4. Okay, if you need progressions past that, then you're going to probably have to just get in touch with us and we can start to give you individualized ones. So that's the dead bug track. It's a great way to start toning your ab muscles, okay? And it's called the dead bug. The next one is called the bridging track. Bridging exercises are great for getting your glutes. So it's going to build on what we started last week. So bridging exercises is, again, we're in the same position. We're in neutral spine. We engage our core, and all you're going to do is you're going to start to lift your butt up into the air until it reaches neutral here. Now, you should be feeling it mostly in your butt. You can feel a little bit in the hammies, but it should be mostly engaging your glutes. If you're feeling it only in your hammies, that's not what we want. What you may have to do is play around with your foot position. You might have to bring your heels closer to your butt, and you might have to squeeze your butt a little bit to drive your hips up, okay? You hold for a second at the top, and then you're going to drop back down, okay? Again, remember that formula. If you're not feeling your glutes firing, you can play around with your heel position, or what you may have to do before you do this exercise is you might have to roll out and stretch out your hip flexors, because if you think about it, as you start to lift into the air like this, you're requiring these muscles to stretch out, and if they don't want to stretch properly, your nervous system will not let you use your butt properly. So you might have to work that formula where you've rolled and stretched your hip flexors first before you try this one. So that's level 1 of the bridging exercise. Excuse me. Level 2, this one progresses a little bit quicker than the dead bug, is we're going to start to create a little bit of rotational force. So all you do is level 2 is you're going to be up at the top position, and then you're going to unweight one leg. So I want you to start by just lifting a heel off the ground. So you'll leave the toe on the ground, but the heel comes off, okay? And again, you're going to do opposites, where you're going to lift your right heel off, then put it back down, lift your left heel off, put it back down, and then you're going to lower back down. And that's 1 rep. So again, you're going to work your way up to 3 sets of 10 reps before you figure out if this exercise is too easy. So if you can do 3 sets of 10 of the heel lifts and it's too easy, then you haven't lost your core, then it's time to move on to the next level. The next level is where we're going to pull the full leg off, or the full foot off the floor, okay? So again, the principle is this: you put your hand on your waist, you engage your core, you get up to the top, and then you're gonna lift one leg up in the air and down, okay? And you're gonna march. Now this is a pretty hard exercise. You're gonna feel you should feel your glutes. And so the mistake here, I'll just exaggerate it. If I lift up to the top and I lift, you're gonna see a drop, or you're gonna see it'll be hard for you to control the stability in your waist, okay? That's how you know this exercise is too hard, okay? So as you unweight one side, you should be able to stay pretty level, okay? So that's bridging. I don't think I'll show you a progression past that one. Some people, modifications to this one, if they're really having a hard time getting their glutes online, you'll hear about people wrapping TheraBand around your knees and whatnot. I don't suggest you guys do that until one of us has a check on whether that's going to be appropriate for you. But you may have heard of that, where we'll put some TheraBand around your knees to have you maintaining pressure out. So that's level 3 of the bridging exercise, where you're pulling one foot off. And again, you work your way up to being able to do 3 sets of 10 marching. So it would go like this. What you would do is you would bridge up, okay, stabilize, right leg in the air, left leg in the air, down, okay? That's 1 rep. And you would work your way up to being able to do 3 sets of 10. That is bridging. The third of the big 4 is called the quadruped exercise. We started a little bit of this when we were learning hip dissociation exercises. Quadruped means just on all 4s. So again, you're going to get on all 4s like this. And again, you may end up wanting to put that dowel or broomstick or hockey stick. I heard there's some Canadians now that are mimicking my friend down in the US and using hockey sticks now. So that's nice to hear. Again, you can explore your neutral spine by letting your back arch a little bit. We don't want you there. And then you can do the mad cat, or whatever it's called, where you tuck your tail. And then you find that nice happy spot right in the middle. So that's called the quadruped position, nice and neutral. And then phase 1 of this track would be to just start to lift one arm in the air at a time, okay? And again, so as you lift one arm in the air, you have to stay tight through the core, because you don't want to lift an arm and have yourself dropping, okay? You want to learn how to move at the arm while controlling movement in the waist, okay? And that's all through engagement of your core muscles. So that's level 1. Again, you would work your way back and forth to be able to do 3 sets of 10 of lifting your arm in the air. Level 2 would be to start to extend one leg at a time. So that would be a neutral spine. You'd unweight and you'd stick one leg back out. Watch that you're not arching your back as you do that, and you're not letting your hip rotate, okay? So we often see people flaring their toe. Try and keep your toe pointed to the ground. Again, this is going to be great for activating that posterior chain. So butt, back muscles, even a bit of hamstring, they all have to work in concert with each other. So again, you extend it out, try and make most of the movement happen at your hip, come back down, opposite leg, okay? That's level 2. And again, you would want to make it so you can do 3 sets of 10. So 10 movements of each leg 3 times in a row, okay? If you can do that and maintain your core, then you're ready to stop level 2 and move to level 3. Level 3 is where we start combining arm and leg movements. This is tricky, so I recommend you get a stick on your back or the foam roller or whatnot as a bit of a feedback tool, because this is usually where we see people losing their core. Is again, you're nice and neutral, and you're going to lift your opposite arm and leg into the air. So that's going to be right arm and left leg. You're going to go straight out, okay? Back down. Now you go opposite, so left arm, right leg. Straight out. Again, it's hard to tell yourself if you're staying nice and neutral here. So a stick on your back, the dowel on your back, the hockey stick, or a foam roller
will quickly give you the feedback whether you're staying stable or not. That's quadruped. That's a very good one to try and get posterior chain working properly. So again, glutes, hammies, and back muscles. That's a great one. The last track, so now we've done dead bug, which is abdominals. Hang on for a sec. I hope Zoom doesn't start giving me a challenge again today. So we did dead bug, that's abs. We did bridging, so that's mainly glutes. Obviously, you're going to get some hammies in there. Now, and then we just did quadruped, which is again that posterior chain. So that's going to be your glutes, your hammies, and your low back. And the last one is called the lateral bridging exercises. We started this way back in hip dissociation. The first level is the clam exercises. So I can quickly go over that, but you guys have been doing that for a while. That's basically where we had you up against a wall for some feedback, but you're on your side like this in a kind of hips at 45, knees at 90. You engage your core to keep yourself in neutral, and you just slowly lift one leg up in the air, okay? Again, you want to be able to do 3 sets of 10 on each side. Without losing your core. If that one gets too easy, then the second level to this side bridging track would be straight leg. Again, we used to do this, or I recommend doing this against the wall, because then you can keep your heel on the wall and you would just lift it straight up in the air. Now, there's a bit of confusion. What I would do is, instead of that one, I would sub in that buck burger one I showed you last week. So don't worry about, if you feel like clams are too easy, then don't worry about just going to the side lifting one. I would do the full 5-step buck burger exercise that I covered last week. That's a way better exercise than just the straight lateral leg lifts, okay? If that one gets too easy, meaning you can do 3 sets of 10 of the buck burger or these lateral leg lifts without losing your core, then it's time to start doing the some of the side bridging progressions. And what a side bridge is, a good way to start learning it is you get back in that same position you were doing in the clam. So that was hips at 45 and knees at 90, and you're going to be up on your elbow like this. And all you're going to do is you're going to put your hand palm down on the mat, engage your core, and you're just going to slowly lift yourself up so that you're balanced on your knees and your elbow. And as you come up, you're going to come forward, okay? And then you're going to go back and lower back down, okay? So I'll try and spin it around so you can see how I change. So I'm here, I lift up, and I come forward so I get into a neutral line. So let me just spin around. I don't know if you can see that very well. So I'm at 45 like this. I'm gonna lift up in the air and I'm gonna go forward. And then I go back down and I settle back down. So that's the entry level. Yeah, I'm watching some of you doing it and you're doing really well. Yeah, that's perfect. So you should be able to get 3 sets of 10 of those on each side before you're ready to stop that one and progress to the full side bridge, okay? So I'll show you the full side bridge. Might be kind of tough for you, but that's basically where your feet are going to be straight out, and I don't like them stacked. I like them where one foot, the top leg is in front of the bottom leg. Again, you can do what's called bracing your shoulder, because some of you might have sore shoulders. And then all you do is, with your legs straight, it's going to be the same principle where you engage your core and stay neutral, and you're going to lift straight up in the air like this, and then you're going to hold it there for as long as you can. But what I would do is I would start out with, say, 10 seconds, okay? If you can work your way up to starting 10-second holds, that's great. Then you can start to progress it to holding for 15 seconds, 20, and then maybe 30 seconds. If you can hold these side planks for 30 seconds, you're pretty darn strong. I don't think you need to worry about progressing it past that. Okay, so those are the 4 exercise tracks. I know I blew through them pretty quick. Again, I'll be putting them up on our website so you can follow along a little bit. So just to recap, what I would start to build into your routine is if you do all of the hip mobility routine, if you do that 3 days a week, then you would do the big 4 the other 3 days a week, and that gives you 1 full day of rest a week. Other than that, that's a pretty comprehensive hip mobility, core stability routine we've covered in the last 4 weeks. I'm not sure if you heard the news, but the clinic was able to reopen to usual care this week, so it's been a pretty full-on week. So I'm not confident I'll be able to continue these weekly classes. So what we're going to do, for sure, I'd love to do some more with you, but it's just a time commitment thing now that we're open for regular care. So this is going to give you a really good entry-level hip mobility and core stability routine. Obviously, where you build on that, there's other stuff we typically teach people. That's self-myofascial releasing, what's called rolling. That's a great way to release tension in muscles. There's all the progressions to these exercises. The other stuff we really start to focus on if you have a lot of back problems is what we call spine sparing strategies, and there's 4 different movement tools we try and teach you. Somebody's got some comments here, sorry. Oh, you're welcome, Carol. So spine sparing strategies is 4 different movement tools we teach you and how to combine them. So that's the ways we can get you moving and doing your normal activities in methods that are safe for your back. Obviously, it's a little bit over the top to try and cover all that right now. Make sure you stay in touch though. Send me messages either in the chat, or you can email or contact us directly. Like I said, we're back to reopen. So if you're having some discomfort or you want to plug in with one of us for any reason, you just have to either call the clinic or email, and we'll either jump on a call with you. We still have the ability to do virtual, or we can just get you into the clinic. Now we've got all the standard Alberta Health Services and our regulatory bodies have outlined all the guidelines that we are adhering to for infection prevention and control measures and whatnot. So when you call the clinic, we can walk you through what's going on with that. So that's all I got for this week. I hope that was valuable. Like I said, this has been recorded, so I'll send you out an email once I've got that posted up on our YouTube channel, and then I'll also do a blog post that kind of outlines the progressions on those the big 4 exercises. All right, thanks everybody. I hope that was valuable for you. Okay, have a good day.